Many people ask me, how can you live from your investments? How can you accomplish this? If you would have invested $10,000 in Apple stock 20 years ago, you would have right now $3.8 million. So let's say right now you made $3.8 million, but then the question is, how can I live? How can I pay for my expenses? So in this video, I'm going to explain to you step by step, how can you accomplish this? How can you get to this point? And everything you need to know to reach financial independence. To start this video, I want to show you how can you live off your investments. And then I will give you more examples of how you can reach financial independence. To start, let's go back to the example of the beginning of this video, which is that if you invested $10,000 20 years ago in Apple stock, you will have $3.8 million. So we are in the year 2024, which means that you could have invested that money in 2004, where if you see the graphic, the stock was around 48 cents per share in 2004, which means that if you would have invested $10,000, you would have 20,000 shares of Apple stock right now. So now that you have 20,000 shares of Apple and you multiply them by $190 average that the stock is at the moment when I make this video, you have $3.8 million. Now we are at the beginning of 2024 and we want to live off our investments. So we need $100,000 out of our investments to live this year for our expenses, for everything that we do during the year. So if you divide this $100,000 by $190, which is the cost of the Apple stock right now, it shows you that you need to sell 526 shares. Now you have 19,473 shares out of your 20,000 that you started the year with. But this is where the best part of this video is going to show you, and it's going to blow your mind. Now we have $100,000 in our bank account for all our expenses for this 2024. And now we go to the end of the year 2024, and let's say our Apple shares went from $190 to $200. Yes, they went up $10, let's say, which means that if you multiply the 19,473 shares that you had left after selling the $100,000 that you needed for your expenses, and multiplying this by $200 a share that are worth at the end of 2024, this means that you now have $3,894,000. And yes, you do have more than what you started year 2024, even after spending $100,000 for your expenses for the year. I don't know what you think about this, but leave me a comment. Let me know in the comment section below what you think about all this. If you have been in the stock market for a while, you probably know that someone wouldn't buy 20,000 shares in 2004. And yes, you're right. What happened is that after 2004, Apple have made 3 different splits. Split is when the share price gets divided by different parts, but it continues to cost the same. So if you look at the screen, Apple in 2005 made a split of 2-for-1. In 2014, it made another split of 7-for-1. In 2020, it did another split of 4-for-1, which means that if you have 20,000 shares in 2024, and if you divide all these splits, this person in 2004 most likely bought 357 shares at an average price of $28. And another thing that I want to make a point in here, if you are experienced in these investments, is that you normally want to sell your shares when it's the best time and when they have the best price. You want to avoid selling when the stock is really going low or is crashing, which is normal in the stock market, like something that happened in 2020. During the pandemic, most of the stocks took a big dip, and this is not really the time to sell. Most of us use that time to buy more shares. I want to give you now a personal example that I have experienced in my own life, and this is with Tesla stock. I was buying heavily Tesla stock in 2018 and 2019, where you can see that I have a $16 cost average per share of my Tesla stock. But it doesn't mean that I bought Tesla stock at $16. Tesla also had a few splits during this time. Tesla split 5 for 1 in August 2020, and it did another split of 3 for 1 in August 2022. So I bought shares at an average price around $250 in 2018 and 2019, but after the splits, I have 15 times more shares, which brings my cost down to $16 a share right now. And this is giving me over 1,000% for gain at the moment. All this means is that if Tesla wouldn't do all these splits during the past few years, the stock would be worth right now around $3,000 per share. This is the reason why I continue to purchase shares every single week, and I continue to accumulate stock for my investment goals for the future. All these shares of stock or index funds are the ones that are going to pay for all my expenses in the future, and this is how you reach financial freedom. To end this video, just look at this easy example, and this is the way that you can continue to improve your finances. Let's say you have $150,000 invested in the S&P 500 at the beginning of this year. The S&P 500 pays an average of 10% a year, which if you do the math, this will generate $15,000 a year on average. Let's say you need $1,000 a month to pay for your expenses or to add to your Social Security that you receive from the government for your retirement, which means that you will spend $12,000 this year out of those $15,000 that you receive from your investments. This means that you have $3,000 left at the end of the year after your expenses, and you end with $153,000 even after spending the $12,000 that your investments generated for you. It's incredible how your investments can continue to make money and your money continue to grow even if you spend some of this money to pay for your bills. Right now, I continue to work, so all the money that my investments are producing, they get continuously reinvested to continue to compound and grow this money more and more through the years because I have my current income from my current job. But the idea is that years later, this money will be able to generate enough money to pay for all my bills with me not having the need to work. Another thing to keep in mind, which is probably some of you are thinking, is that the S&P 500 doesn't normally pay 10% every single year. If you look at the graphic, you can see that in 2023, the S&P 500 generated over 25% increase for the year. But in the year 2022, the S&P 500 actually decreased by over 18% for the year. In 2021, it increased more than 26% for the year. And now you can see the rest of the years, what is the average return of the S&P 500. But in general, if you look at the last 20 to 30 years, the S&P 500, it's been generating more than 10% average per year. And this is how you calculate how much money you're making and then take that into account for your future planning on how much money do you need to accumulate in order to generate the amount of money that you need to pay for your bills every year. I hope this video helped you understand how can you live from your investments. This is something very easy, but many people complicate it way too much. And my goal is to help you understand how your current income can create millions of dollars in the future, and you have the power of being that 1% of the population that the other 99% wish they could be. Just remember that the best time to invest was 10 years ago, and the second best time is today.